The psychological impact of climate change. Climate change has far-reaching effects not only on the environment but also on mental health and psychological well-being. These impacts can manifest directly through exposure to extreme weather events or indirectly via anxiety about the future, changes to communities, and broader societal shifts. Understanding these effects is critical for addressing the emotional and psychological challenges associated with a changing climate. Direct psychological effects. 1. Trauma from extreme weather events. Natural disasters like hurricanes, wildfires, and floods often result in psychological trauma, including post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, depression, and anxiety. Survivors of these events may face ongoing emotional distress due to displacement, loss of loved ones, and damage to property or livelihoods. For example, research following Hurricane Katrina found long-lasting mental health consequences among affected populations, including increased rates of PTSD and depression. 2. Heat-related aggression and irritability. Studies suggest a link between higher temperatures and an increase in aggression and violent behavior. Extreme heat can exacerbate stress and reduce cognitive performance, leading to irritability and mood disturbances. Indirect psychological effects. 1. Eco-anxiety. Eco-anxiety, defined as chronic fear of environmental doom, is increasingly recognized, particularly among younger generations. Many individuals feel overwhelmed by the scale of the climate crisis and uncertain about the future, leading to feelings of helplessness and despair. A 2021 global survey published in The Lancet found that 60% of young people felt very or extremely worried about climate change, with 45% reporting that these feelings negatively affected their daily lives. 2. Loss of place and identity. Climate change can disrupt communities, forcing individuals to leave their homes due to rising sea levels, drought, or other environmental factors. This displacement can lead to a sense of loss of cultural identity and belonging, often referred to as solastalgia. 3. Economic and social disruption. Changes to agricultural productivity, food security, and employment can lead to economic instability, which is closely linked to mental health challenges such as anxiety, stress, and depression. Vulnerable populations. Children and adolescents, younger populations are particularly vulnerable to the psychological effects of climate change, as they face the prospect of a future dominated by its challenges. Marginalized communities, socioeconomically disadvantaged groups often bear the brunt of climate change, experiencing disproportionate impacts and fewer resources to cope with its effects. First responders and aid workers, those on the front lines of climate-related disasters, frequently experience burnout, compassion fatigue, and trauma. Strategies for mitigation and resilience. 1. Community-based interventions. Building resilient communities through social support networks can help individuals cope with climate-related stress. Community initiatives that involve education, preparation, and rebuilding efforts can foster a sense of control and agency. 2. Therapeutic approaches. Trauma-informed care and cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, can support individuals coping with climate-related trauma or anxiety. Practicing mindfulness and engaging in environmental activism can also provide psychological relief by fostering connection and purpose. 3. Policy and advocacy. Governments and organizations can play a role in mitigating the psychological impacts of climate change by prioritizing mental health services and creating policies that address both environmental and social vulnerabilities. Conclusion. The psychological impact of climate change is a growing concern that affects individuals and communities worldwide. Addressing these effects requires a multifaceted approach that combines mental health support, community resilience, and meaningful action to combat climate change. By acknowledging and addressing the emotional toll of the climate crisis, we can better prepare individuals and societies to adapt and thrive in the face of environmental challenges.